What's going on, guys? Welcome back to LTH. My name is Abe, and in this video we're going over episode 3 of our series of learning Linux. And today's video will be Linux user management, and you can find our playlist linked down below. Also, don't forget we have a website with a page for every single video we make with all the commands if you'd like to go slower or read up on them yourself. And as a little shout out, we are starting a community-owned data center. This is our website, thedatacenterproject.com, and go check out our series on our channel for this project as well if you'd like to learn more and get involved. Alright, so if you are just coming across this video, go back and check out our series like mentioned just a second ago of how to set up your environment for learning Linux if you'd like to do that. So I'm going to do Control Shift and my plus key about 4 or 5 times just to make these commands a little bit bigger and easier for you to read. So Linux manages systems accesses through users and groups essentially. So each user is going to have a unique ID, which is called a UID, and belongs to one or more of these groups that those permissions and processes are controlled by the system, right? So that is how Linux is giving a user permissions based on categorizing them in a group. And so, you know, for users, the home directory typically is /home/username. We can see we are logged into the user learn under our Ubuntu desktop machine or host name, as well as this $, meaning this person is a normal user, where the £sign usually means they are a root user. And so the first command I want to talk about is running commands as root, right? So user management. So for example, we could do sudo apt update, and this sudo command is essentially running the user root temporarily for this specific command, okay? And so then we could click enter and type the password to get that root user permissions, and then it's going to update our system for us. So now that that's done, and that's just an example, I'm going to do Control L to clear my Linux terminal. And then if we want to switch to the root user, which is not necessarily recommended, some applications may require you to do it because it runs a script and it needs each item in the script to be ran as sudo, we can do the command sudo su. And now we can see we've switched to the root user under the host name. And as I mentioned earlier, it is usually going to be the home directory and then their username of the folder which they're in. Okay. And so we can just switch back to a normal user with su and then the username. And now we can see that that has changed. So the next thing I want to cover outside of just moving between the root user and back to normal user permissions is the etc passwd folder. And this is essentially a system file listing all the user accounts. So if I do the cat command, which we were taught in an earlier video, and then passwd, and we cat this information, remember it's putting all this information for us in our terminal instead of opening it in a file. Geez, that is a hard word to say. And so this can look a little overwhelming, but we need to break down the general formatting fields with these colons, right? So we're essentially split into group 1, group 2, group 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I will have this link down below on our website. But the first field is the username. The second field is a password placeholder for security purposes. The password is no longer in this file. It used to be in old, less secured Linux. The third one is the group ID at which the user belongs to. And 0 usually refers to the root group found in etc group. The second one is the group ID. Or excuse me, we're 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, group ID. And then number 5 is the comment or GECOS field, right? A descriptive field, often the real name of the account. The description here is simply root in our example. So this is just describing the user. In our case, some of these may be different. In our case, all of these system ones are the same. But the last one is their home directory. So their directory can be found in the /root folder. And then the last field here we're going to discuss is the default shell. So when you log in as the root user, when you change them, you will be presented in the /bin/bash directory to then perform commands. Okay. And so if I clear this out, the next command we're going to talk about is the shadow folder, which needs to be done with the sudo command cat/shadow. And we're going to, I forgot our /etc. So just like that. And we're going to click enter, and it's going to ask for our password. And now we have a group here. So if I just scroll back up so we can see our command, we again have a whole bunch of fields. In this case, there are 9 fields. The first one is the username of the account. The second one is the password field, which is just a placeholder. The third one is the last time the password was changed, the change date of the password. The third one will be the minimum number of days before the password can be changed. 0 means the password can be changed at any time. The maximum days the password is valid for before requiring change. All 9s mean the password never expires. The warning period or number of days before the password must be changed. So this will give them 7 days of warning. And then these are blank. They are placeholders. So the first one would have been the inactive period of days after the password expires before the account is disabled. The next one will be the account expiration date, number of days since when the account was disabled. And then the last one will be the reserve field, but it is currently being unused. Okay, so again, you're not going to remember this stuff, but it's just good to have it in the back of your mind and be aware of them. So the next one I want to talk about with user management is the etc group. So we can do cat/etc/group like so. And then within here, the general format for these will be the group name, okay, the password placeholder, and then the group ID right here. And then over here, if it's filled, a member list. But we're really concerned with these 3. So if I scroll up, group for sudo has the user learn, which is one of us, permissions of learn within the group. So that's a great example right there. Now let me control L out of this. And then the last thing I want to cover in this episode, so it doesn't get too long, is just user management tools. Linux provides several command line tools to manage user groups. So adding users, deleting users, modifying users, adding them to a group, and add a user sudo group add. So add a group as in make a new group, and add a user to a group. I might have twisted my words there, so I want to be clear. And then list user groups. So the first one we're going to do is sudo user add the user name right here, just like that, okay? So in our case, we would do learn. So sudo user add learn. This will create a new user. So we could do new user like this, okay? And so now we have a new user. And then we can delete the user with sudo user delete like this. So just think add, delete, nice and easy. And then we would type the new user's name, and they've been deleted. I'm going to go ahead and add it back real quick for the rest of these commands. And then if we want to modify user, example, change the username or home directory, you could do sudo user modify. See, we have a nice trend here we're starting to see. -L, the new name of the user. So new user, and then their old name, new user. So this would be an example of changing or modifying this user's account to a new username, and this was the old username, okay? And then if we want to add this group, we could do sudo group add. So now we are user adding, group adding the user. And then what would the group name be? Or excuse me, this is adding a new group. I keep mixing those. When I'm reading my notes, I keep mixing these two up. We're going to create, by sudo group add is going to create a new group. So we could do cool kids, and this creates a new group. Okay, and now we can add a user to that group. So sudo user modification, like previously mentioned, -a big G for add to group, the group name cool kids, and then the username new user. And now they've been added to a group. And so now we can do groups usernames, no such user. But if we do groups new user, we can see what group this user has been added to. So I just wanted to be clear about that. When we say groups, then you type a username, okay? And so in our case, with it actually typed out, it would be group new user. And then the new user is new user under cool kids, okay? So that's it for this video. That just teaches you a little bit of things of how to mod, add, delete, remove users, and understanding group permissions and what they mean for group management. But in the next episode, we're going to go over Linux permissions for these users and other applications and stuff within this series. So thank you for watching. My name is Abe, signing off with another video.